Hello, third grade, and welcome to our reading skill for today. We're going to continue looking at figurative language. When we looked at figurative language last lesson, we looked at idioms. Remember, idioms are phrases that mean something different than what they say. We looked at some idioms like, it's raining cats and dogs, or that's a piece of cake, and we practiced some of them in our lesson. Today, we are going to learn two new types of figurative language. On your class kick, you'll see that we have this graph that we'll be filling out as we learn the 6 figurative language types in our following lessons. We have alliteration, hyperbole, metaphor, onomatopoeia, personification, and simile. Today, we are going to look at alliteration first and then hyperbole. Let's go ahead and begin. Alliteration is a sentence or a phrase with words which start with the same letter or sound. So you may have heard these as tongue twisters. An example is Morgan Mouse munched marshmallows merrily. They all start with the sound. A sentence or phrase with words which start with the same letter or sound. Go ahead and write out the meaning of alliteration underneath the box. It is a sentence or phrase with words which start with the same letter or sound. Pause the video if you need time to type this out. You may use the diction tool as well to help you write it out a little quicker. Now I'm going to write an example of this below. So I can really say anything as long as it starts with the same sound. So maybe I could say, snow smells stinky, Sam. All of those start with the S sound, and that is alliteration. I want you to write an example of alliteration below using the same beginning sounds. Companies use alliteration to help grab people's attention. So maybe you heard Dunkin' Donuts. Those both start with the D sound. That is alliteration. Or Best Buy. That's also alliteration. Now, I said a moment ago that sometimes they are tongue twisters. So here's an example. Sometimes when you are reading something that has alliteration, it's hard to say because it all starts with the same sound. If Freaky Fred found 50 feet of fruit and fed 40 feet to his friend Frank, how many feet of fruit did Fred find? Whoa, try to do that super fast. Another example is Silly Sally swiftly shooed 7 silly sheep. The 7 silly sheep, Silly Sally shooed, shilly-shallied south. Woo, that's a hard one. See if you can get someone in your family to try out one of these tongue twisters, if they can do it any better. The second type of figurative language we're going to be looking at today is called a hyperbole. Say that out loud. Hyperbole. Now we're going to break this word down, and I want you to think about what the word hyper means. What do you think of when you hear the word hyper? Probably really crazy, right? A hyperbole is a description of something that is extremely exaggerated. So it's really crazy. So maybe someone would say, we waited in line all day. It doesn't really mean that they stood in line from 12 a.m. to 11:59 p.m., right? They didn't stand in line all day. It just means they stood there for a really long time. It's an exaggeration. Hyperbole is an exaggeration. Let's go ahead and add that to our class kick. Let me grab another text box. Excuse me. So a hyperbole is used to describe, oops, I need to make it a little smaller. There we go. Describe something in an extremely exaggerated way. So another one that you may have said or you may have heard is that I am so hungry I could eat a horse. You probably wouldn't actually eat a horse, but it means you're very hungry. It's an exaggeration. So we have a couple of things we're going to go through to practice hyperboles and alliteration today. And first I want you to go to the page that starts with hyperbole at the top. Remember, a hyperbole is an exaggerated statement used to add emphasis and helps describe something in a more interesting way. Go ahead and type those out. We're going to practice these ones together. And I'm just going to add a voice tool on the side, which you can do as well. So I had a ton of homework last night. A ton is kind of like the size or the weight of a elephant. An elephant probably weighs a couple ton, I'm not sure. But that's a weight. Does your homework weigh a lot? I had a ton of homework? No, that means that you have a lot of stuff to do. So I'm going to click on my recording tool. They had a lot of things to do. And that is the literal meaning. Our next one, that shoe is as old as a dinosaur. Is it really that old? Is it 100,000 years old? No, it's probably just very old. It's an exaggerated statement. The shoe is very old. Remember, you can pause the video to add these in at any time. Last night, it felt like the movie lasted for eternity. It didn't really last for eternity, it just lasted a long time. The movie lasted a very long time. Pause the video if you need to catch up and write all of this out. And then we'll go back to some alliteration that you'll be able to practice more on your own. So again, figurative language that uses the same beginning sound in the phrases. So I gave you 4 here to practice, and you can record yourself and add it to the box on the side. See if your family would like to try as well. Then below, you're going to have to circle which one shows alliteration. There are multiple that shows alliteration. So for example, my sister grows gorgeous grapes. The 3 words that are using alliteration are grows gorgeous grapes. They all start with the same sound. So you'll have to find what the alliteration words are for the next 2. In your second alliteration activity, it is very similar to what we started with. You'll be underlining the letters that make the alliteration in the sentences. For example, Sam snipped a strawberry soft drink. So I'm going to underline the S because that is the letter that is showing the alliteration. And you'll do that for 2, 3, and 4. The second part is to add the word from the box to complete the sentence to make alliteration. Mike made a mouth-watering pie. All right, so I'm seeing M repeat, so that's probably going to be meat. You'll finish 2, 3, and 4 on your own. For our practice with hyperboles, we are going to have two sections to practice this. The first part, we will be identifying each sentence as an example of a hyperbole or not an example of a hyperbole. Remember, a hyperbole is an exaggeration. So we will do the first 5 together, and the last 5 you will do on your own. First one says, I ate a whole plate of food on my own. Is that something that someone could probably do? Yes, so that is not a hyperbole. I have a million things I have to do. No, you couldn't have a million things to do. That is an exaggeration. So that would be a hyperbole. You can just write an H. The teacher gives us so much work. Yeah, they probably could give you a lot of work. The fire was extremely hot. Yeah, the fire could be extremely hot, so that's not a hyperbole, not an exaggeration. She is skinnier than a toothpick. She can't actually be skinnier than a toothpick. That would be nothing. So that is a hyperbole. I will die if I can't go to the movie tonight. They probably won't actually die if they don't go to the movie, so that is a hyperbole. That's an exaggeration. Oop, I went 1 too many. You will finish 7, 8, 9, and 10 on your own. Make sure you have written at the top that I have on mine. The bottom part is to write 3 examples of hyperboles that you came up with on your own. You can ask your family to come up with some, or maybe think about some things that you use in your language all of the time. Maybe there's a hyperbole, maybe you speak Spanish at home and you use a hyperbole. You can write it in Spanish. And then the final part, what are some things you should look for when trying to decide if a sentence is a hyperbole? Well, you should look for an exaggeration. If it's something that is not true, that it won't actually happen, then that is an exaggeration. Once you're finished with these worksheets, then you can move on to the next activity.